Hello, welcome to This Is Us. I'm Becca King-Reed. This week, we're at Ballet San Jose. We're going to see how a ballet goes from idea to performance. You'll see dancers, choreographers, composers, and costumers at work. We'll also meet two artists from Santa Cruz. Susana Arias, a talented painter and sculptor with a unique creative process, and Beth Grippenstraw, whose art reflects her somewhat skewed view of the world as she battles vertigo. And finally, we'll meet one of the principal dancers of Ballet San Jose and learn what it really takes to be a ballerina. We've got a lot of stories to share, and it all starts now.
This is us.
This is us.
This is us.
Welcome back. Joining me now is the music director for Ballet San Jose, George Daugherty. George, thank you. That's lovely.
Nutcracker.
Nutcracker. Well, so reason it is so familiar. Tell me about conducting music for a ballet. How do you start that process?
Well, you know, in many ways it's like normal conducting, where you're just conducting an orchestra. You're still dealing with the music and the composer and the orchestra. But with ballet, there's this wonderful, wonderful addition of a stage full of dancers. And that makes all the difference in the world because as a ballet conductor, we not only are holding court over the whole orchestra, but we're also making the music be danceable, making the tempos be the tempos that the dancers need. There are all kinds of little details that come up in a ballet performance that the conductor has to be totally aware of. And every dancer is different. So every dancer, every principal dancer has a different tempo, even if it's the same ballet from night to night. So there's a lot of keeping track of details when you're conducting for the ballet.
What do you think is the biggest challenge you face on a nightly basis?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is the changing of casts. You, in a ballet like Don Quixote or the Nutcracker, you can have 4 different principal ballerinas on 4 consecutive nights. And each one of them has their own special needs. They dance differently. That's what makes live music so incredibly wonderful for ballet performances, is that you can make those changes from night to night, and you can really make the music mirror and be absolutely perfect for the dancer that is dancing.
Now there are a lot of companies are going to the recorded music, and that's going to make a difference then.
It does make a difference because when you have a recorded track that you dance to every night, all of the dancers have to dance to the same exact music, and they have to make the adjustments. Whereas with a live orchestra, we make the adjustments to the dancer. So some dancers are faster, some dancers are slower, some balance forever, some do 10 pirouettes. So when you're conducting, you're able to accommodate all of that and make the music match, you know, the individuals of each. Plus the sound that comes from a live orchestra. For Ballet San Jose, we have Symphony Silicon Valley in our pit. The sound of 60 live musicians coming from this hole in front of the stage, the orchestra, as we lovingly call it, the orchestra pit. It's a fantastically visceral experience for the audience as opposed to a recorded track coming on.
Okay, thanks so much for taking us behind the curtain for this. We'll be back in a minute with more from the ballet, but first, we're going to visit Susana Arias, Santa Cruz County's Artist of the Year for 2012. Much like her art, Susana Arias is a force of nature. Passionate, ebullient, and creative, the Santa Cruz painter and sculptor via Panama has won international acclaim and awards for her work. While the art is memorable, the artist is a rare combination of enthusiasm and brio and just enough TNT to power any loft or studio. Hang around long enough and she will convince you that art is the one true path in life.
It's really fun and it's really energy releasing. You can be stressed, get a big wall, put a canvas on it, get some paint, let it ride.
While Arias is painting, the only truly amazing thing is that sparks don't just jump off her brush. She can work at a feverish pace, step back, and then attack the canvas like a bulldog going after a $2 steak. She is relentless when it comes to art. Her fervor for her profession probably started when she was a child.
Since I was a little kid, I did like to play with dirt and just touch things and look at things. And I've always been intrigued by nature and little animals and just textures in nature. And I just use a lot of materials. I paint, I sculpt, I do clay, I do bronze, I carve. I use acrylics and oils and caustic painting, and I mix the mediums, and I do handmade paper. I'm passionate about materials.
Arias's bio reads like something out of a mystical Bob Dylan song. The diplomat's daughter of the Panamanian ambassador to the Vatican, Susana spent most of the first 7 years of her life growing up in Rome, surrounded by art.
I was quite young, but I'd get dragged to every show and every art thing when I was a little kid, and then you just learn to love it. And when I was older, my parents took me to a lot of art exhibits and mostly theater.
The architecture, painting, and sculpture of that ancient city were all part of the rich mosaic of her childhood. However, it wasn't until Arias was in college that she discovered her true calling and that boundless obsession for crafting art that fuels her life.
I went to Tulane University, and they have a really good art department. They had a great sculpture instructor, Jules Strupek. He was just very inspirational. And so just being around him made you want to make art.
In 1987, Arias was the recipient of a grant by the National Endowment for the Arts for Sculpture. She has continued to paint and sculpt with the same fire and zeal she always displayed, but Arias has also managed to do volunteer work in the local schools, teaching art while giving lectures and workshops at universities, galleries, and museums. Along the way, there were also public commissions, including a Caltrans design winner in Capitola and a memorable arch that greets visitors when they first enter the Polo Grounds State Park in Aptos. Arias is not content to restrict herself to just one project. She seems as if she is always in motion.
I just like moving from one medium to another. That way you have no downtime. You get to play all the time. In painting, you go, oh, there's a little red line. You go, you grab a little red paint, you do it. With sculpture, you got to go make the part, go fire it, glaze it, finish it, then you can put it on.
Over her career, Arias has been influenced by a number of artists, but the Romanian sculptor Constantine Brancusi holds a special place in her heart.
I make these pieces and then I go, oh my God, it's wonderful, I've never seen it before. And then I go, oh yeah, Brancusi did something like that, you know? And there's nothing new, and if it's not new to you, I think you should just do it anyway. You know, that's basically, I mean, if it's something that comes out of your soul and you just do it.
The famous English sculptor Henry Moore said, "There's no retirement for an artist. It's your way of living, so there's no end to it." Welcome back. Joining me now is Wes Chapman, artistic advisor for the ballet. Thanks, Wes, for bringing us up to your fun Studio E.
Well, we're glad to have you here.
Now, tell me a little about your role and how you get a ballet from the idea to the actual stage production.
Well, that's one of the great things that I get to do, is to have the artistic vision for the company. For example, Jessica Lang is here with us making a new work, and I have known Jessica for quite some time. We have this new composition that's going to be really, really exciting. I'm looking very much forward to seeing how it comes out. It's always a risk. You never know how it's going to go in the end, and the visual sometimes is not what you expected, but sometimes it's always better.
So what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now to get this program going?
This particular program with Jessica, we're right in the beginning stages, so that's always interesting and fun. But once it starts to really come together, it's really out of my hands and into the creative process, and that's really what I like to see happen.
And what do you do to influence or support that creative process?
Well, with Jessica in particular, I'm assisting her. I sit with her a lot. She'll whisper things to me and say, you know, what about this person with that person? And I'll go, maybe this one with that one. And she goes, oh, okay. And I know the history of the dancers, so that really helps her.
What is the story of this ballet?
There isn't one. There's dance for dance sake, and that's going to be one of these pieces.
Is that more challenging than one with a story, or are the stories more challenging?
Well, usually modern choreographers are very interested in sort of their own take on whatever it is they're going to do. I personally grew up in the great classics, so I'm really good at that stuff.
So is this heavily influenced by the choices of music that are being
Absolutely.
made?
Everything is based on how the music inspires you.
Well, thanks very much for giving this backstage peek. When we come back, we'll take a look behind the scenes with the choreographer. But first, we're off to the studio of artist Beth Grippenstraw. Her paintings take the viewer to a fanciful land of delightfully skewed perspective. But for Beth, it's no fantasy.
I've always been an artist. I never knew I had an interest. It was just me. I love art. I always have. I work in ceramics. I work in watercolors, which thrill me to pieces, and I've been doing metal jewelry.
Beth Grippenstraw, a Santa Cruz native for 35 years, has a zest for life despite horrible bouts of vertigo.
Vertigo is, it's not a fun thing in your head, and it's this drastic spinning. During an episode, it's the right side of my head that goes. It becomes numb, and I'm really sick at the same time. And then sometimes it's a week to 2 weeks recovery period. It's not a fun thing. I don't wish it on anybody.
After 2 years of doctor visits and severe suffering, Beth took her negative illness and turned it into something positive.
The vertigo is a big part of who I am. I don't think it defines me completely, but it's a big part of me. And it created this whole new style of painting for me that I never would have come up with before. So that's just pretty cool. The first painting, the idea I came up with was me laying in bed, because I spent a lot of time doing that. And I painted what it looked like from my toes to my whole room. My paintings, I would describe them as being they're my mindscapes, they're my stories in paint, they're fractured, they're whimsical, a little surreal at times. I start with a rough sketch, and it's very rough, as you can tell. Then it moves on to the finalized sketch, which is this one right here, and I pretty much check that out. I like it, it's ready to go. I transfer it onto my watercolor paper right here, and now it's ready to start painting. I do terrible things to my friends in paintings. This painting is called The Noise. I love it. It's bright and colorful. But this is my friends. I have a great group of friends. We all have dinners together. But this particular night, they were all just yakking, and it was so noisy that it was really affecting me. I can't handle loud noises sometimes, so I painted myself over here with my earplugs in, looking at all my friends, and all of a sudden I went, oh my gosh, they're like hill mynah birds. This piece is called The Dishes, and I'm not very good at doing them, so it generally looks a lot like that. Not as colorful, but I hate doing the dishes. This painting's called A Long Way Up. I'd been painting in my studio downstairs, and of course another vertigo attack hit. I call them my crash and burns. My paints are on the floor, and you see my foot on the right. I was trying to get up the stairs, and as I looked up, I just went, oh my gosh, that's a long way up. One of my open studios, a really touching moment, a man came downstairs after looking at my paintings and was in tears, and I went, oh my gosh, are you okay? What happened? He goes, I saw one of your paintings. He goes, no one understands. He goes, I have vertigo. No one understands it. He goes, you painted it like I feel.
Beth has done more than 100 art shows during her career.
For a show I just did, I set up my whole entire yard with the African tents, the African waterhole. I had zebras, I had blue herons and flamingos. I had big giraffes I had made. They were like up in the shrubs. It was pretty cool. And I had my old Jeep out that I had forever, and I wanted to like kind of present this vintage Africa look back in the olden days. I had the cots on the old dishes, everything. My Africa. It's been a place I've wanted to go my whole entire life. I've never been. If I'm not creating, I'm a really miserable person. It's happened before. We don't want to go there again.
So it's not strange to find Beth creating various art pieces out of clay or metal in one of her 3 studios.
I've been doing ceramics for over 25 years now. They're all slab work. I've been doing the metal jewelry now for about 2 years. I love combining the metals. I like doing silver, I like doing brass and coppers, putting them all together. The vertigo, it was a very debilitating thing to happen. It kind of stopped my life as I knew it, but The painting, I think, brought it out of me. I feel like I painted my way out of it. I feel like it was a lemons to lemonade story. It's been amazing.
Welcome back. Joining me now is choreographer Jessica Lang. Jessica, thanks for taking time from your lunch to join us up here in Studio E.
Thank you so much.
Now tell us about your new ballet. You're putting together a ballet, a brand new one. Tell us from start to finish, how did you get your first idea?
Well, I met a composer, Jakub Czapinski, a few years ago, and I was really drawn to the way he works. He's an he's a classical composer as well, but one of his interests is electronic music, and he does a brilliant improvisation with theremins, electronic theremins, and it's a long board with two antennas that come up, and he has written a computer program that kind of indicates the space as being instrumental, percussion, maybe horns, and he plays the field in front of him, and it makes music.
So he will score what you've already created then?
Yes.
Ah, so how do you put together the dance movement without music to go by?
We find physical phrases, feeling, emotional reaction. Sometimes it's very intellectual. It's an intellectual response to maybe numbers and math. And we just put it together in a rhythm that kind of feels organic.
So do you do that all in your head or by moving around the floor, or do you have dancers try things?
They try things. I definitely create the movement, but we play with moments of chance and reaction, and I just keep playing, kind of moving the pieces and the sculpture around the space and seeing what I like best.
So you're looking for the visual of how they appear with each other and between each other in the space that's between them and all of that together.
Yes, absolutely.
When do you know you're on the right track?
I think I found it. I've definitely found we've started, we're moving forward, and both casts are really becoming owning the movement and material.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for taking a minute
Thank
to talk
you.
to us.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a minute with some fun with ballet shoes, but first, John Gregg profiles one of San Jose Ballet's own, Karen Gabey.
She stands 5'2½", weighs 105 pounds, and eats determination for breakfast. A tiny athlete with a giant presence, Karen Gabey is a rare combination of grace, beauty, and grit. The luminescent dancer is the prima ballerina of Ballet San Jose, and one of the key reasons why that company is held in such high regard around the globe. Watch Gabay perform for any length of time, and you soon recognize that the petite woman is no ordinary dancer. She's an exceptionally disciplined athlete that becomes a life force when she's on stage.
You always have to be thinking about how your body is physically, what you look like. We stand in front of the mirrors 8 hours a day looking at ourselves. And so sometimes it can be difficult. You have a lot of competition. And so as long as you keep all those aspects in line and in order, you just have to find that balance. And it's great fun for me still.
In a stunning career that has seen her dance all the classic major roles in ballet, one of Gabay's most remarkable achievements is that she's still going strong at age 47. That's right, 47. In a profession where most ballerinas might last 10 to 12 years, Gabay has been a prima ballerina for an amazing 29 years. She's the Cal Ripken of ballet. She doesn't call in sick, she fights through injuries, and she simply keeps dancing because she has a passion for her art. Steadfast discipline to diet and exercise, and a blue-collar work ethic instilled by her late parents Clarence and Rose, as a young girl growing up in San Diego, has produced a woman of extraordinary talent and dedication.
I didn't think I would be here this long, but I never said, well, at this age I'm going to stop. It's just kind of been going with the flow and seeing how my body does, and life changes. When I had my daughter, that was sort of a fork in the road, because a lot of people feel that once you have a child, that's it. And I didn't want to do that. And if I felt I couldn't physically continue, then that would be a different story. But once I got back in shape, it was difficult, but I did get back in shape. Then I just still wanted to continue.
Gabay first fell in love with dancing when she was just 7 years old, and it would become a lifelong love affair that first allowed her to overcome her shyness.
Well, I had two best friends in my elementary school. We were all in the 2nd grade, and they were going to take ballet lessons. And so I wanted to join them. So we went to the Park and Recreation in San Diego. And then we started dancing, and then they eventually ended up quitting, but I loved it so much I stayed with it. I was a very, very shy and quiet kid. And what was nice about the ballet was that you just moved to music. You didn't have to talk with anybody. Everybody left you alone, and I could just kind of be in my own world, and all you did was listen to the teacher, which was like school, but it just gave me a time. It was kind of meditative, and nobody bothered me.
By the time she was 14, Gabay was dancing 6 days a week and performing in a junior company. Nevertheless, she wasn't sure if dancing was going to be in her future.
I think not until, all the college preparation in high school. That's when you kind of had to decide what you wanted to do. And although I liked the ballet, everybody in my family went to college. And so that was sort of the way I was leaning to. But then my parents told me, if you can get a job dancing, then that's fine. If you don't get a job, then you should go to college.
Gabay graduated from high school and went on several auditions. And just like a great young baseball player or basketball player, she had so much talent, she turned pro. Almost immediately, she was signed by the Cleveland Ballet Company, which literally set the stage for her long career.
Well, I was 18 at the time, and I was probably the youngest dancer in the company. And at that time, we went on tour to New York and Florida, and they were building all these huge ballets that were the classics of the repertoire: Swan Lake, Romeo and Juliet, Coppelia, Giselle, all of these ballets, which, these are the classics that you want to dance. And so I was given opportunities in all of those ballets to dance the leading, ballerina roles. And so I just stuck with the company all the way until they left Cleveland in 2000.
The San Jose connection with the Cleveland Ballet goes back to 1985, and Gabay has danced in both cities for both companies. However, when Cleveland folded 9 years ago, Gabay was given the opportunity to return to California and has continued to dance the principal roles for Ballet San Jose. In a demanding profession that has seen virtually all of her contemporaries retire, Gabay simply continues dancing, and that's meant dealing with injuries.
Well, there's a lot of injuries on knees and ankles and joints. A lot of times men with all the partnering and lifting with their backs. But I've just been very, very fortunate that way where, I've had little things bother me here and there, maybe a hamstring pull or a groin pull or maybe an ankle that got tweaked during a performance. But other than that, I have to say, my longevity, I feel very fortunate that I've kept going as long as I have. Now you're going to go side, keep renverse, renverse, flip.
Over the last few years, Gabay has spent more of her energy focused on choreography and her own dance company, Point of Departure, which returns to Cleveland each summer to perform. Despite the fact that she's considerably older than most ballerinas, Gabay believes that works in her favor in terms of bringing depth and nuance to many of her roles.
He leans you back. Now your arms. And I think also as you mature, that maturity you can bring all that and experience into the artistic side of it. And what happens in this profession is that you have the artistic side and you have the physical. And I'm fortunate enough to combine those at this mature age of mine. Whereas a lot of younger dancers, they haven't found that artistic maturity experience to delve into those roles yet. And so since I'm still physically capable and I have that maturity, I think it's a nice balance at this point in my career.
So just how long does a 47-year-old single mom with a 7-year-old daughter keep dancing? Well, if you're the dazzling Karen Gabey, age is just a number.
I don't think about it, And what's in an age? I mean, it's just the way things are perceived. You know, at such and such an age, you're supposed to do this, and at this age, and I just never have thought like that. I don't conform.
Well, it's just about time to bring the curtain down on our day at Ballet San Jose. But first, Lee Kopp has some really fascinating facts about shoes. And you've got a basket of shoes with you. Tell
Got a
me
box
about
of
these
point
things.
shoes. These are very high tech actually because they consist of a box which is layers and layers of material and glue. Very,
So it's a
very
big,
hard.
hard toe.
Oh, very hard. And a shank. The box fits the toe, helps you stand up. The shank gives you that nice arch. But they're very, very hard and they break down. So people extend the life of their shoes by maybe darning with silk.
Oh, interesting.
And that gives a little extended life. It also gives you a little
So
stability.
the ballerinas do this themselves?
Oh
by
yes,
hand?
oh yes. And some people don't like that shank to be hard all the way back, so they'll pull the shank back, they'll shave it down, and then re-glue it. So you have a hard front and a softer back.
Oh, so when they're done dancing, they can get jobs as shoemakers.
Yeah, they could actually.
What's the cost of one of these pairs of shoes?
Oh, $50 to $100 if it's not a special order.
And how long do they last? They don't look very worn.
That's because it's the inside of the shoe that breaks down first, all right? And they'll last maybe one performance. If you're dancing a Swan Lake, they'll last maybe 2 days
Oh my gosh.
if you're doing rehearsals.
So if you're paid $100 for your shoes and they last 2 days,
Yeah,
that's a lot of shoe
expensive.
money.
Yeah, we go
Yeah,
through
yeah.
about $100,000 worth of point shoes a year.
Now I noticed that they're all signed, beautifully signed.
Yes.
Autographed shoes.
So we
Why the
know how
autographs?
many pairs she wore. Because she gets a shoe allowance. If she goes beyond that, then we have to figure
Oh,
something
she's on her
else out.
own.
Yeah.
Well, shoe allowance. Someone take a note. I'd like a shoe
You want a
allowance.
shoe
I
allowance?
want a
Oh,
shoe
okay.
allowance. Thank you so much, Lee. For all of us at This Is Us from Ballet San Jose, I'm Becca King-Reed saying so long.
This is us.